Every successful, high-performing organization on the planet, I mean, think defense departments, cutting-edge logistics firms, they all use these advanced, data-driven strategies to manage their most valuable asset.
Human energy.
Exactly. Human energy. They don't guess. They're using complex modeling, performance tracking, even artificial intelligence, to make sure their teams are operating at peak efficiency and health.
Right. And that infrastructure, it isn't just about maximizing output. That's, I think, a common misconception. It's fundamentally about mitigating systemic risk.
Okay.
It's about preventing catastrophic burnout, improving retention. It's about creating this complex, well-documented system that works with the human, not against the limits of its biology or its psychology.
Exactly. But if we accept that you, the listener, are your own most valuable asset, then why don't we apply this same high-level critical organizational thinking to our own lives?
That's a great question.
We often just rely on, willpower, intuition, coffee, and the data shows that's just a recipe for severe cognitive debt.
It really is.
So today, we're giving you the shortcut. We're going to synthesize the blueprints you need to build your own personalized operating system.
Yeah.
A comprehensive integrated framework for peak personal performance and, maybe more importantly, profound emotional resilience. Okay, let's unpack this.
Our mission today is, well, it's pretty ambitious. We are merging three seemingly disparate source areas.
Right.
First, we're looking at the hard science of performance biology, so circadian rhythms. Then we're diving into the deep psychology of survival and stress responses, including those mechanisms rooted in trauma.
Okay, and the third?
And finally, the tactical strategies of documentation and change management, which we've borrowed straight from, best-in-class corporate training.
We're pulling the essential components from all these fields to help you gain knowledge quickly but also thoroughly. We want you to feel empowered by this knowledge, not overwhelmed by the sheer volume of information out there.
Right.
We're looking at what genuinely governs your energy, your mood, your ability to focus, and how you can stop, habitually working against your biological factory settings and your own inherited trauma history.
It's time to install version 1.0 of the most optimized self you can be.
All right, let's start with the non-negotiable hardware of your operating system, your biology. We've been provided with some really compelling data straight out of the world of enterprise scheduling and fatigue management, and it all revolves around the profound influence of circadian rhythms on performance.
That is absolutely the starting point. The core concept here is that circadian rhythms are your body's internal, roughly 24-hour clock. And it's not just about sleep, like you said earlier.
Right.
This clock, it orchestrates nearly every single biological system, from your hormone release to your core body temperature, your metabolism, your immunity, everything. And this internal timing mechanism is so crucial because it directly dictates your alertness, your energy levels, your physical reaction time, and maybe most importantly for our purposes, your decision-making capabilities throughout the day.
So who is the CEO of this internal timing company? What's running the show?
That responsibility falls primarily to this tiny cluster of about 20,000 neurons in the brain called the Suprachiasmatic Nucleus.
The SCN.
The SCN, exactly. It's often referred to as the master clock. And the SCN regulates this internal timing based predominantly on external cues, which scientists call zeitgebers.
Zeitgebers, I love that word.
It's a fantastic German term. It just means time givers.
Okay, so we always hear that light exposure is the biggest cue. But can you detail what specific actions really qualify as manipulating a zeitgeber? What can we actually do?
Absolutely. So light exposure is paramount. The SCN is incredibly sensitive to light intensity and its wavelength. For instance, getting high intensity light, and we're talking, say, 2,500 lux or more, which is much, much brighter than standard indoor lighting.
Way bright.
Within the first hour of waking, acts as this powerful signal to the SCN that the day has officially begun. It locks in your timing, and it really improves your daytime alertness.
And the opposite is true at night, I assume.
Precisely. Locking short wavelength light, so that's the blue light everyone talks about from screens, in the hours before bed sends a powerful dusk signal. It tells your brain to start producing melatonin and prepare for sleep.
But it's not just light, is it?
No, there are other critical zeitgebers. Meal timing is a huge one. When you eat, it signals to your peripheral oscillators. These are the sort of mini clocks in your organs, like the liver and the pancreas, what time it is.
So my lunch break is basically a clock.
In a way, yes. Eating a large meal really late at night, for example, sends all these conflicting signals to your internal systems. It makes it harder for the body to transition into a rest and repair phase, regardless of what the SCN is doing.
And what else?
Physical activity is another powerful cue. And even social interactions. Regular social engagement helps keep your 24-hour cycle on track.
Okay, here's where it gets really, really interesting, Franny, and where we kind of need to stop romanticizing this idea of hustle culture. We often pride ourselves on pushing through exhaustion, burning the midnight oil. But the science shows there is a measurable and, frankly, a steep cost to ignoring your biological timing.
It's so much more than a feeling. It's a quantifiable performance deficit, and it's recognized by every major regulatory body that deals with fatigue risk management.
Okay, so what are the numbers?
Working against your natural circadian timing can reduce your cognitive performance by up to 30%.
30%, that's huge.
It's huge. And critically, it significantly increases error rates, which has massive implications in everything from, surgery to coding to just driving your car home.
If the data is that stark, and it is, why do we as individuals and organizations just keep ignoring it?
I think it's because the deficits accumulate so subtly and we compensate. Right, we use stimulants like caffeine, but the source material highlights this one stark, verifiable benchmark. Working during your biological nighttime, which for most people is roughly 10 p.m. to 6 a.m., impairs your judgment to a degree that is comparable to having a blood alcohol content that would typically constitute mild alcohol intoxication.
That is a staggering finding. So you're saying I'm essentially operating under the influence of my own biological fatigue.
Precisely. And in high-risk environments, this translates into catastrophic outcomes. We're talking error rates increasing by 2 to 5 times during that biological night phase.
Wow.
And these effects are cumulative. It's not just one bad night. The deficit compounds over multiple consecutive night shifts until you have sufficient recovery time, often several full nights of sleep, to allow for a full circadian realignment.
Which is why those companies that actually implement this stuff see such huge benefits.
Exactly. They report significant business benefits like reduced absenteeism and dramatically improved safety records. It's a win-win.
But of course, not everyone's internal clock runs on the exact same schedule. We hear about morning larks and night owls, and that comes down to our chronotype, right?
Yes. Genetic variations create these chronotypes, the larks, the owls, and, of course, intermediate types in between, which define your optimal window for peak performance. It's a highly personalized aspect of your hardware.
And this can change over your life.
Oh, absolutely. We know that chronotypes shift across the lifespan. For instance, adolescents and younger adults are often better able to adapt to late shifts. They tend to be more owl-like, while older adults tend to shift towards being earlier chronotypes.
So if someone listening wants to move past that vague label of I'm a morning person and actually establish a scientific baseline for their personal clock, how do they do that?
Well, for a validated assessment tool, the source material points to the Munich Chronotype Questionnaire, or the MCTQ.
Okay.
It's a standard, non-invasive tool that uses self-reported sleep and wake times, especially on free days, days where you don't use an alarm clock, to calculate your theoretical ideal midpoint of sleep.
And what does that midpoint tell me?
That midpoint tells you exactly where you fall on the chronotype spectrum. And knowing this is absolutely critical because it tells you where your natural cognitive performance peaks will occur and also where your non-negotiable dips will happen.
That famous post-lunch slump.
Exactly. Typically between 1 p.m. and 3 p.m. for most people.
So we know the science, we know the cost of getting it wrong, and we know our clock is unique to us. So now, how do we apply these high-level organizational strategies, the sort of AI logic used to schedule massive workforces, to personalize our own day?
We begin with an optimization strategy I find incredibly powerful because it relies on your own raw data. The energy audit.
An energy audit. I like the sound of that.
It's a method designed to systematically track your actual real-world productivity and energy patterns. You just commit to recording data for 1 to 3 weeks.
What exactly are we tracking, and how granular do we need to be?
Hourly. You record 3 core factors on a scale of 1 to 10. Your energy, your focus, and your motivation.
Every hour.
Every hour. The granularity is crucial for detecting those subtle peaks and troughs. The whole goal is to establish a true, unadulterated baseline of your performance capacity.
Now, here's my challenge on this audit, and I think this probably reflects the experience of the average desk worker. The pre-audit advice from the experts is to, ideally, cut down on caffeine and alcohol to rule out those chemically induced energy bumps, and to ideally wake up without an alarm. Wait a minute. If I'm an average desk worker, cutting out caffeine for 3 weeks sounds impossible.
Yeah.
Isn't that advice a non-starter for most people? How do the sources suggest we manage that withdrawal period and still get useful data?
That is a critical question. And the experts, they do acknowledge that for most people, the full clean baseline audit is challenging. It's very difficult, especially because of caffeine withdrawal, which can seriously skew the data negatively for the first week or so.
What was the workaround?
The key is adaptation. If quitting caffeine just isn't feasible for you right now, the next best thing is to keep your consumption strictly consistent for the audit period.
Okay, so no extra shots on a high-stress day.
Exactly, no extra shots. And you record it. The data might show a chemically boosted energy level, but the resulting crash will still reveal your body's dependency and your actual low points. The goal is accurate mapping, even if the territory itself is a little messy.
That sounds like a much more achievable goal. Consistency over abstinence if abstinence is a barrier.
Right.
And speaking of fuel, we often focus on what we eat, but you're saying when we eat is just as important for our circadian alignment.
Oh, absolutely. Nutrition is a critical zeitgeber for those peripheral clocks in our organs we discussed. The general advice is all about strategic macronutrient timing.
So what does that look like in practice?
You should consume foods rich in proteins and healthy fats during your peak periods of alertness. These nutrients support sustained function, and they're metabolically demanding. Your body is ready for them.
And carbs.
Conversely, carbohydrates, which often facilitate tryptophan uptake and the production of serotonin and melatonin, they're better suited for the evening.
Ah, so you're helping your body wind down.
Precisely. By consuming carbs, then, you naturally aid the body's preparation for rest and the downshift of activity.
Okay, and finally, let's bring in those AI scheduling techniques that large companies use, that organizational intelligence, and translate them into personal scheduling guidelines for the listener.
Right. We can adopt 3 key principles from that world. First, organizational systems use data to match employees to biologically compatible shifts. We can call that chronotype matching.
So for me, that means what?
For you, this means prioritizing your most complex, high-stakes tasks for your proven peak energy window as revealed by your energy audit. Don't waste your best hours on email.
Got it. What's number 2?
Second, AI systems often design what are called forward-rotating shift patterns. That means shifts rotate later rather than earlier.
Why is that?
It's because the body's natural circadian clock actually has a period slightly longer than 24 hours. That means it has a natural tendency to want to delay sleep timing slightly.
So it's easier to stay up later than to wake up earlier.
Exactly. For you, this translates to honoring that tendency. If you need to adjust your schedule, it's usually easier on your system to shift it slightly later than it is to force yourself to wake up much earlier than you're used to.
And the third principle relates to recovery, you said.
Yes. They implement appropriate, non-negotiable recovery intervals after high-fatigue shifts. For the listener, this means recognizing that periods of intense cognitive load like 8 hours of deep focus work require commensurate, scheduled recovery intervals.
And not just switching from your work screen to your phone screen.
Please, no. That is not recovery. You have to protect those recovery intervals with the same commitment you protect your work periods.
So the powerful takeaway here is that you're using your own data to treat your schedule like a complex optimization problem. You move from fighting your body to really partnering with it.
Yes.
Scheduling your high-value work exactly when your natural alertness and capabilities are at their maximum.
And that's the...
Okay, moving from our biological hardware, that circadian timing, to our psychological firmware. Let's talk about stress. We all experience it, but understanding how our body reacts at a cellular level is the key to managing those knee-jerk behaviors that can sabotage our goals.
Stress fundamentally is a disruption of homeostasis. It's a disruption of that internal balance. When a stressor hits, the body activates this cascade of really complex physiological responses. It's all mediated by the nervous and endocrine systems.
And it's designed for survival, right?
It is, but the modern context often renders it maladaptive. Our bodies are reacting to an angry email like our ancestors reacted to a saber-toothed tiger.
Let's break down that physiology. I think it's important to differentiate between the fast, immediate response and the slower, more pervasive one.
Okay, so the immediate reaction is the fast response. That's the sympathetic Adreno-Medullary, or SAM axis.
The SAM axis.
The SAM axis. Its activation is immediate, and it leads to increased secretion of norepinephrine and epinephrine adrenaline and noradrenaline.
The fight-or-flight hormones.
Exactly. This triggers all these rapid, widespread physiological changes. Increased heart rate, elevated blood pressure, diversion of blood flow to your large muscles, enhanced arousal, alertness, vigilance. It's all about preparation for immediate fight or flight. It's crucial for short-term survival.
But what about the slower, longer-term system, the one that keeps us stressed out for days?
That's the Hypothalamic-Pituitary-Adrenal, or HPA axis. This system acts on a slightly slower timeline. It releases CRH, which eventually signals the adrenal glands to release cortisol.
The infamous stress hormone.
That's the one. And cortisol's primary role is to mobilize your energy stores and suppress immune inflammatory responses. It's basically conserving resources for the long haul.
So if the stressor is intense or repetitive or it's prolonged, if we're just running our HPA axis constantly, what is the deeper physiological cost of that?
This is where we need to introduce the concept of allostatic load. So allostasis refers to the process of achieving stability through physiological change. When the HPA axis is repeatedly or chronically activated, the cumulative wear and tear on the body's systems, that is called allostatic load.
It sounds like running an engine red hot without changing the oil.
That's a perfect analogy. This chronic activation is incredibly maladaptive. It leads to dysfunction across virtually every major body system. We see cardiovascular problems, respiratory issues, severe GI distress, musculoskeletal pain, and chronically suppressed immune function.
And it affects the brain too, right?
Massively. Persistent high levels of cortisol can actually change the structure of the brain. Specifically, it can lead to a reduction in hippocampal volume, which is crucial for memory and emotional regulation.
Wow.
This is why chronic stress is such a massive contributor to depression and anxiety. It's your OS running in a state of perpetual systemic error.
That biological foundation leads directly into the 4 instinctive stress responses, the infamous 4 Fs. We know fight, flight, and freeze, but let's look at how they manifest more subtly in our daily professional and personal lives.
Let's start with the fight response. In a modern, non-physical context, this is the urge to confront or dominate the perceived threat.
So not actually punching your boss.
Hopefully not. No, this looks like defensiveness, a quickness to anger, an explosive reaction to stress, or a strong, sometimes compulsive need for control in a situation.
Can you give an example?
Sure. If you're a manager, this might manifest as micromanagement when you're under pressure, or immediately arguing with a colleague when they offer constructive criticism, even if it's valid.
Okay, and flight.
The flight response is avoidance or escape. This can manifest as physical restlessness or more subtly, as overworking or perfectionism.
Wait, perfectionism is a flight response?
It often is. These are often used as emotional checking out mechanisms. You stay so busy, you make everything so perfect that the inner stress or the threat can't catch you.
No. So like ghosting a client who gives tough feedback.
That's a perfect example. Or ending a relationship the moment true conflict arises. That's a flight response.
And freeze. This one feels different.
It is. Freeze is this profound system shutdown. When fighting or fleeing seems impossible, the body just immobilizes. It's a primal mechanism to minimize harm or avoid detection.
In a high-stakes meeting, what does that look like?
It can look like going completely blank, paralysis by indecision, or this profound internal dissociation where you're physically present, but emotionally you're numb, you're gone. It's an energy-saving move that leaves you feeling utterly stuck or unable to act.
Now we come to the fawn response. This is often called the hidden 4th response, and it feels deeply relevant to navigating modern social and professional landscapes, especially in places where social approval is highly valued.
Fawning, a term coined by therapist Pete Walker, is essentially people-pleasing as a trauma-driven survival strategy.
Okay, distinguish that from just being nice.
It's a crucial distinction. Fawning involves automatically attempting to appease, smooth over, or submit to a perceived threat, whether that threat is an angry boss, a critical parent, or a turbulent social environment, to avoid conflict or harm.
It's about safety.
It's all about safety. It is self-silencing under pressure. You consistently prioritize others' emotional safety over your own needs, and this often leads to shame, burnout, and profound resentment down the line.
The cost sounds enormous. You're essentially abandoning your own internal needs and boundaries just to manage someone else's emotional state or maintain their approval.
That is the absolute essence of it. It's not a conscious choice to be agreeable. It's an automatic, learned safety reflex. It's developed in unpredictable, hostile, or demanding situations.
I read one of the experts, Dr. Ariel Schwartz, notes that fawning involves disconnecting from your own emotions.
Yes. You systematically disconnect from your own emotions, sensations, and needs because at some point in your life, asserting them was dangerous.
The source material specifically highlights the impact of fawning within the autistic community, which is a vital connection to explore, especially given the high rates of social trauma in this population.
It's so important. Autistic fawning is often deeply embedded within masking.
Which is?
Masking is the conscious or unconscious suppression of natural neurodivergent traits in order to blend in. And this is driven by significant social trauma, the painful, repeated lesson that says, if I assert myself, if I stim, if I show my true quirks, I get hurt, I get rejected, or I get punished.
So fawning becomes part of the mask.
Exactly. The fawning behavior includes things like suppressing sensory distress, over-explaining everything, automatically agreeing to tasks even when you're completely overwhelmed, or exhibiting this highly deferential behavior just to avoid being deemed difficult or too much.
That constant need to hyper-calibrate yourself to what others want, just to feel enough. I mean, it must be an incredible energy drink.
It leads to severe and chronic emotional costs. We see chronic anxiety and this profound hypervigilance.
What does that mean in this context?
It means your nervous system is constantly scanning the environment, monitoring others' micro-expressions, their tone of voice, their moods, for any sign of imminent disapproval.
That's exhausting.
It's utterly exhausting, and it contributes heavily to identity confusion as the individual loses touch with their genuine self. And most critically, it leads to autistic burnout, which is this intense, sometimes debilitating physical and emotional exhaustion that results from the sustained chronic stress of pretending and appeasing.
There was a startling statistic in the sources.
A very startling one. A study found that 32% of autistic adults showed signs of PTSD, compared to just 4% of non-autistic adults. It really underscores the severity of the social trauma that's rooted in constant fawning and masking.
That data is sobering. So if fawning is such an established survival strategy, how do you gently and safely teach your nervous system that it's okay to stop appeasing and start prioritizing yourself? How do we even begin the process of unlearning and relearning boundaries?
Recovery involves gently, systematically teaching the nervous system that safety exists without the need to people-pleaser. It has to be gentle.
And it starts internally.
It has to. It starts with internal reconnection. The simple, consistent habit of just pausing and asking, what am I feeling right now? What do I need? Is this headache mine? Or am I feeling anxious because the person next to me is?
And getting professional help seems key.
Oh, absolutely. Seeking trauma-informed neurodivergent affirming therapy is crucial. They can help process the underlying trauma and provide a safe, structured space to practice assertiveness without immediate physical or emotional repercussions.
And for practical, immediate change, we need scripts. We need ready-to-use language that can bypass that anxiety-driven automatic yes response.
Absolutely. Think of these as practical scripts for setting boundaries. It's a key management step in any crisis plan. If you struggle with workplace overfunctioning, for instance, you can use a structured refusal that shifts the burden of prioritization back to the requester.
Do you mean an example of that?
You could say, I can deliver A by Friday or B by Wednesday, not both. Which one is the priority?
Well, I like that. It's helpful, but it's also a boundary.
Precisely. Or, if something is truly outside your role, practice this simple phrase. That falls outside my role. I'm happy to suggest the right contact who can handle that.
What about personal or relationship boundaries? That's where the emotional stakes feel so much higher. It's much harder to say no to a friend or a partner than a colleague.
The key is calmness and brevity. Practice short, firm scripts. For conflict, you might say, I won't discuss this while voices are raised. I need space for 30 minutes, and then we can try again at 7.
And for social stuff?
For social requests, keep the explanation minimal. Thanks for thinking of me. I am fully booked this weekend and need a recovery day, but have a wonderful time.
Okay, but what about the pushback? What happens when people get mad that you set a boundary?
You must anticipate that. Setting a boundary may make some people angry or uncomfortable. The source material emphasizes this, that negative reaction doesn't mean you are wrong or selfish.
So what do?
You plan for calm repetition. I understand you are frustrated, but my answer remains the same. And you have an exit plan if things escalate. Pairing this practice with grounding techniques like focusing on your breath and planting your feet firmly on the ground when you feel yourself freeze helps keep your nervous system in the present moment.
Okay, so we've established the hardware, our biology, and we've decoded the firmware, our trauma responses. Now we shift to the critical software component.
Yeah.
Documentation and clarity frameworks that turn all this self-awareness into actionable practice.
Yes.
Just as organizations rely on documented processes for efficiency, we need personalized manuals for ourselves to reduce friction.
That analogy is perfect. In the corporate world, you have operations manuals, right? They provide the high-level instructions for essential tasks, processes, governance. Then you have user manuals, which are more technical. They're self-help resources covering in-depth functions, troubleshooting, best practices. They're designed to enhance the user experience and reduce constant support inquiries.
And we can apply these two distinct functions to our personal OS.
Yeah.
We need a user manual for our external interactions and an operations manual for our own internal governance.
Precisely. And that brings us to the Personal Operating Manual, or POM. Sometimes it's called a How to Work with Me guide. This serves as your external user manual.
What is it exactly?
It's basically a short About Me profile that you compose and share with your colleagues. It explicitly details your working styles, your communication preferences, and your personal quirks.
This sounds incredibly high leverage for building better relationships, especially since remote work can obscure so much of our natural working style.
It completely fast-tracks trust and connection. The data shows that while only about 5% of desk workers surveyed reported using these written guides to get to know colleagues, those who adopt them quickly become fast fans.
And the act of writing it is an exercise in itself.
A profound, clarifying exercise. It forces you to crystallize what is genuinely important to you at work and how you really want to show up.
So what are the essential components that make a POM effective? It sounds like it requires a degree of self-awareness that might feel, well, a bit vulnerable.
It absolutely requires vulnerability. One source described a POM as a marauder's map for your personality.
I love that.
And the core advice is this. If at least one item on your list doesn't make you feel slightly uncomfortable to share, you probably didn't dig deep enough. You need to be honest about your strengths, yes, but also your weaknesses and things you are actively working on improving, not just presenting some sanitized, perfect version of yourself.
Let's look at the key prompts that can help listeners draft their own manual. Let's go beyond the simple, I like email.
Okay, let's think about 4 deep categories. First, work conditions and energy.
So my ideal setup.
Exactly. You detail the conditions you need for peak flow. This includes things like quiet requirements, whether you need music or silence. You can even establish headphone cues that signal to people that you're in focus mode and shouldn't be interrupted.
And your schedule.
Yes, you outline your preferred schedule, adjusting for your biological realities. For example, my deep work peak is from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m., so please avoid scheduling non-essential meetings during that time.
Okay, second category, communication and conflict. This defines the flow of information.
Yes. You clarify the best way to reach you based on urgency. So you might state that chat is best for quick, synchronous questions, email is for asynchronous, non-urgent information, and you reserve phone calls exclusively for conflict resolution or complex strategic discussions.
And you have to include how you handle conflict.
Crucially, you detail how you manage conflict. When I'm stressed, I tend to need 10 minutes to process the data before speaking. My silence does not mean I am agreeing or disagreeing.
That one statement could prevent so many misunderstandings.
So many.
Third category, feedback and motivation. How do I best absorb information, especially criticism?
Right. You must define how you prefer to receive feedback. Maybe it's only via phone or a meeting, never in writing where tone can be lost. You can stipulate that feedback should be focused entirely on the work or the actions, not directed at your personhood.
And motivation.
You might also include a statement on how you prefer to be motivated. Some people thrive on public praise. Others prefer a quiet, direct email recognizing their specific contribution.
And the final category is perhaps the most critical for reducing that interpersonal friction. Addressing potential misunderstandings.
This is where you get ahead of the story. You surface those unique behaviors or potential pitfalls, for instance. Being quiet in meetings doesn't mean I'm disengaged. It means I'm processing information internally and will only speak when I have a fully formed thought. Or when I voice doubt or play devil's advocate, it's not to be negative. It's because my primary concern is covering all the bases and mitigating worst-case scenarios. This kind of radical transparency fosters immense psychological safety for the whole team.
So if the POM is the user manual for external interaction, the manifesto is the operations manual, the foundational internal constitution.
A manifesto is a written declaration of your core beliefs, your motives, your intentions. It traces its roots to the Latin manifestum, which means clear or conspicuous.
It's not just a statement, though.
No, it functions not merely as a statement of principles, but as a bold internal call to action. It challenges your own assumptions and fosters a deep personal commitment.
So how does a personal manifesto serve our optimization goals, especially when we are under a lot of pressure?
Its primary function is to be a constant source of inspiration and clarity. It's the bedrock upon which you build your behavior.
Yeah.
It acts as this crucial medium through which your present rational self, the self that's listening to this deep dive right now, can correspond with your future struggling self.
I love that framing.
So when you inevitably face hardship or self-doubt or misalignment, you already have a prepared written statement of how you decided in a calmer moment you will respond. It prevents reactionary emotional decision-making.
So it's not just a nice piece of writing. It's a crucial consistency tool under pressure. What are the specific steps for writing one that is powerful and effective?
Okay, 4 steps. Step 1, pick your core topics. Don't try to write about everything. Pick the few areas of your life that demand guiding principles, like integrity in your work, how to treat hardship, your philosophy on managing finances, or your principles for raising children.
And step 2?
Step 2, set down your absolute non-negotiable principles. Lay your cards on the table about your beliefs and your motives. And be prepared for this to reveal some unconscious values you weren't even aware of until you tried to write them down.
Step 3 is about the language.
Yes. Use strong, affirmative, active language. This is non-negotiable. Avoid passive, wishy-washy phrases like, I hope to be kind. Instead, use commanding statements like, I will exhibit strength and control. Or use the declarative present tense, I seek and exhibit radical truth in all my interactions. This active language makes the commitment feel deeply serious and internalized.
And the final step is more symbolic.
It is, but it's powerful. Step 4. Consider writing it physically with pen and paper. This physical act of pressing the words onto the page is symbolically powerful. It helps to press those words into your mind and heart as well. It just distinguishes this document from some quick digital note you typed out.
So we've established the foundation, the biology, the psychology, the documentation. Now we face what is probably the toughest challenge, sustained change. We often jump into new habits with a ton of motivation, but without a systematic process, and that's usually why we fail.
Right.
We need to use systemic approaches, drawn right from clinical care, to manage this process like an ongoing OS update.
Absolutely. Behavioral counseling interventions, or BCIs, in clinical care use these highly organized frameworks to help patients adopt healthy habits. And the research shows that even modest impacts, we're talking 5% to 15% of those receiving a structured intervention, making clinically significant changes.
That doesn't sound like a lot.
It doesn't, but it translates into massive public health benefits when it's applied systematically. The lesson here is that a robust framework is always more effective than intense, unsustainable effort.
So we are going to adapt to the 5A's construct, which was originally designed for tobacco cessation research, for our personal use in activating and maintaining new behaviors.
The 5A's provide a consistent, non-judgmental approach. Let's walk through them using the example of trying to establish a better work-life boundary and reduce chronic overworking.
Okay. Number 1, assess.
You have to systematically evaluate the current behavior and your personal context. For self-management, this involves brief self-assessment questions that quantify the problem.
So if my goal is reducing overwork.
The assessment is quantitative. How many hours did I work past my official end time in the last 7 days? Or how many days did I successfully use my boundary scripts last week? Assessment has to be feasible, brief, and measurable to establish a clear baseline.
And number 2, advise.
Based on that assessment, you provide clear, strong, and highly personalized advice to yourself. For a clinician, the advice is based on health status. Your blood pressure will improve significantly if you stop smoking.
And for me.
For you, the advice is rooted in your manifesto and your biological findings. Based on my energy audit, I must stop working past 6 p.m. to protect my recovery window and prevent allostatic load accumulation.
Okay. And number 3, agree. This is where most people skip a step. They know they should change, that's the advice step,
Yeah.
but they haven't actually engaged in a change negotiation with themselves.
Absolutely. You have to actively engage with yourself on your willingness and your confidence to change. You assess your readiness through questions like, on a scale of 1 to 10, how important is it for me to make this change? Or on a scale of 1 to 10, how confident am I that I can achieve this boundary this week?
And why is that so important?
Agreement is crucial because it anticipates and prevents internal resistance. It also helps you consider multiple intervention options. You might agree to start small, like, I will not check email after 8 p.m., rather than an immediate, overwhelming, I will never work late again.
And number 4, assist. This is where the rubber meets the road, the skill-building phase.
Assistance involves providing yourself with the necessary skill training, social support, and resources. If you are trying to enforce a boundary, the assistance isn't just deciding to leave work, it's creating the structural support.
Like what?
Like installing an automated out-of-office reply that turns on at 5 p.m., scheduling a distracting activity right at 5:01 p.m., like a gym class or a call with a friend, or enlisting a partner's help to remind you to step away. The assistance needs to be tangible.
And finally, number 5, arrange, the crucial follow-up.
Follow-up is non-negotiable because behavior change is a chronic maintenance problem, not a one-time fix. You arrange routine self-support scheduling, a quick check-in every Friday morning to evaluate the plan.
And in that check-in,
You briefly repeat the first 4 A's. Assess the week's performance, advise yourself on any necessary adjustments, agree on the next week's focus, and assist by gathering new tools or support. Follow-up is what's necessary for relapse prevention and for updating the OS.
moving from proactive planning to reactive strategies, let's address what happens when the stress system gets hooked, when an emotional trigger hits, and our old default settings like fight, flight, or fawn just take over. We need a structured trigger management plan, a TMP.
A trigger management plan uses the structured approach of anticipate, identify, manage to help you recognize emotional triggers and prepare coping strategies, bypassing that automatic reaction.
Let's start with anticipate.
You have to explore proactively and honestly what might trigger you. This could be specific external stressors like unexpected deadlines, interactions with certain critical people, scrolling social media, or even specific dates related to grief or past trauma.
And knowing them helps how?
Recognizing these potential triggers helps you avoid being caught completely off guard, which is when the nervous system is most vulnerable to defaulting to its old programming.
Next, identify. This goes beyond just recognizing the feeling, right?
Yes. When you are triggered, you must focus on recognizing how you feel or respond. The physical and mental reactions like shortness of breath, tightness in your chest, racing thoughts, or an urge to withdraw.
But the deeper work.
The deepest work is focusing on the underlying need. Instead of just focusing on the triggering event like, the boss criticized my work, you ask yourself, what did it make me feel? I felt excluded, I felt powerless, I felt unheard. Naming that underlying emotional need is the first step toward responding effectively.
And finally, manage.
Yeah.
Deploying the tools.
This is where you deploy your personalized list of tools, and I recommend physically writing them down and keeping them accessible. This list should be organized by the type of F response you tend toward.
So, specific tools for specific reactions.
Exactly. For freeze, you might need movement, like a walk, or grounding exercises, like the 5-4-3-2-1 technique that focuses on your senses. For fight, you need immediate distance and connection, like calling a trusted friend. For fawn, you need those boundary scripts and expression journaling, drawing, anything to reconnect with your own internal voice.
These tools help interrupt the automatic stress loop.
And allow you to respond with conscious care.
Another incredibly powerful technique for systematic trigger analysis that was in the sources is the behavioral pattern analysis, or the ABC model. This helps us find the root cause, which is often not what we think it is.
The ABC model stands for antecedent, what happens before, behavior, and consequence, what occurs afterward. By systematically tracking this, you can identify these recurring environmental or internal triggers that lead to the challenging behavior.
Let's use an example. Say, high internal stress and an emotional outburst at home.
Okay. An individual might track this. Antecedent. Receiving a vague, highly demanding email from senior leadership at 4:58 p.m. on a Friday. Behavior. Immediately snapping at a family member over a minor issue. Consequence. Ruined evening, high level of shame, and unnecessary conflict.
And if you track that over time...
Tracking this over multiple weeks might reveal that the critical trigger, the antecedent, isn't the content of the email, but the timing. It's receiving high-stakes, vague information right at that transition point when your body is trying to downshift for recovery.
The consequence is the chronic stress spilling over into your safe space.
Precisely. And tracking these patterns offers profound insight into the root causes, which are often things like noisy environments, hunger, lack of sleep, or these consistent boundary violations by others.
Okay. Finally, let's wrap up this segment with the holistic approach to professional and personal development planning. We need to make sure our goal setting is structured using the SMART method.
Right. The SMART method ensures your goals are specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-bound. But just knowing the acronym isn't enough. Dr. Shanita Williams offers this really effective 5-step process that places SMART goals into a much broader system.
And what are those 5 systemic steps?
1. Define results and motivation. Start with the end in mind. Understand why you want to improve, because that emotional motivation is crucial for enduring the maintenance phase.
Okay. 2.
2. Determine required skills. List all the skills, knowledge, and resources needed to achieve that goal. Be exhaustive here, even if it feels overwhelming at first. 3. Perform a skills self-assessment. Honestly assess which skills you already have and which will take time to learn. And importantly, seek outside perspectives here to avoid your own blind spots.
And 4 is the key, I think.
4 is where most people fail. Isolate one skill to focus on. People try to tackle 5 goals at once. By deliberately isolating one relevant skill, you reduce your cognitive load, you increase your focus, and you drastically increase your odds of success. You create momentum.
And 5 is the plan.
5. Develop an action plan. This is where you finally apply the SMART method to your chosen, isolated skill, defining what success looks like and setting your deadline.
This holistic approach should also integrate different ways of learning. The sources mentioned engaging the head, the heart, and the hands.
Exactly. Effective development has to use a combination of 3 avenues. Formal learning, which is structured workshops, online courses, reading foundational texts that engages the head. Social learning, which is finding a mentor, joining an industry association, networking, that engages the heart and provides accountability and perspective.
Experiential.
And experiential learning. This is skills-based practice, linking up with project teams, seeking real-world scenarios where you can test the skill in a safe-to-fail environment. That engages the hands. Using a combination of these methods ensures the learning is sticky, deep, and actually integrated into your daily OS.
We have just built the blueprint for your personal operating system, a really comprehensive framework that connects your internal state to your external behavior. We took these high-level strategies from corporate scheduling, deep trauma psychology, and best practices for documentation to create your ultimate guide to self-management.
We detailed the biological engine, understanding your chronotype, the verifiable cost of circadian misalignment, and how to conduct a data-driven energy audit to optimize your peak performance hours. We then decoded your internal survival instincts, explaining the fight, flight, freeze, and fawn responses, and we specifically addressed the profound cost of autistic masking and provided practical scripts for necessary boundary setting.
And finally, we detailed the essential documentation for self-governance. We focused on personal operating manual to fast-track connection with others and manifestos to anchor your future self in your present, clearly defined values. And we concluded with the structured change management framework of the 5 A's and that anticipate, identify, manage approach to handling emotional triggers.
This entire system is fundamentally about recognizing a core principle of human health, the general adaptation syndrome and the resulting allostatic load. Chronic stress weakens all systems, your immune system, your cardiovascular system, your cognitive system. You simply cannot run indefinitely on adrenaline and cortisol without incurring massive systemic debt.
So what does this all mean? It means the goal isn't just surviving stress or simply returning to your old baseline. The ultimate goal here is to achieve reconfiguration, to establish a new, healthier normal where your peak performance is achieved not through willpower, but through alignment.
Yes, alignment between your actions, your biological needs, and your deepest values that you defined in your manifesto.
Self-management is a continuous update process. You have gained clarity on your systems. The next time you feel overwhelmed or anxious or burnt out, you know exactly where to look for the error message.
So the question is, what part of your personal OS will you choose to update first? Will you conduct an energy audit this week? Will you sit down and write your personal manifesto? Or will you just practice one boundary script?